those assisted programs, enroll in retraining, attempt to get a job, try and retain themselves, they will retain their benefits. If they sit on the couch eating potato chips, they're going to lose them. Millions of low-income Americans are expected to lose their benefits because of the work requirements and the bill's other measures affecting Medicaid and food stamps. Notably, few of those dropped from Medicaid coverage would have access to job-based health insurance, according to a Congressional Budget Office report about the House version of the package. Those in the lowest income group, earning less than $18,000 a year, would see a $165 reduction in their after-tax, after-transfer income once the safety net cuts are taken into account. According to Penn Wharton, that's a 1.1% decrease. The next level, who earn between $18,000 and $53,000, would get a $30 bump in income. Middle-income households would see their income rise by 1.4% or 1.8%. They earn between $53,000 and $96,000 a year. And just to put that into perspective, y'all, if you're working, if you've got a two-income family, you're making $20 an hour, you're working full-time, that's $80,000 a year. Two-income family, $20 an hour full-time, that's $80,000 a year household income. The health provisions won't only hit low-income Americans. The Senate is also tightening verification requirements for the Affordable Care Act, federal premium subsidies, which could also leave some middle-income Americans uninsured. All told, the bill could result in more than 10 million more people being uninsured, according to reports. Hospitals are not happy with the health care provisions of the bill, which would reduce the support they receive from states to care from Medicaid enrollees and leave them with more uncompensated care costs for treating uninsured patients. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. The Senate removed a last-minute excise tax on wind and solar that experts warned would have been a killer for the clean energy industry. However, the Senate bill still strips tax incentives for wind, solar, and other renewable energy projects. The American Clean Power Association slammed the legislation as a step backward for American energy policy that will eliminate jobs and raise electric bills. Electric vehicle makers could also be left worse off because the GOP bill ends the EV tax credit of up to $7,500 at the end of September. Previously, those tax cuts were scheduled to last through 2032. The package would increase the deficit. This is what I think is a killer. The deficit would increase by almost $3.5 trillion over the next decade, according to the Congressional Budget Office. Adding trillions to the debt risks lifting already elevated interest rates. That in turn will make it more expensive for Americans to finance the purchase of a car or a home, and for businesses to borrow money to grow. Not only that, but higher rates would force the federal government to devote even greater resources to finance its own mountain of debt. The Congressional Budget Office expects U.S. federal government interest costs to surpass $1 trillion per year. United States spending on interest has already more than tripled since 2017, surpassing what the federal government entire defense budget. And there you have it, the one big beautiful bill act. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to see you. We encourage everybody to come on up. You can talk about this, or you can talk about whatever you want. And don't suck. And with that, let's say hello to our mod squad. I've assembled the best mod squad in the history of Clubhouse. They've got a wide variety of fields of expertise and knowledge. Reverend Scott, good morning. Thank you for doing the heavy lifting.
Good Morning, my Uncle Steve. What the hell's happening? Love the pop-up room yesterday. Love when my Uncle Steve. I love when Uncle Steve goes after dark, especially. That is my vintage Uncle Steve. That's when I put my personal replays on and make the vintage Uncle Steve. These are like the Nixon tapes, the Uncle Steve tapes.
Except I don't erase any. I keep all the replays on.
Uncle Steve, I will just say this about the beautiful bill. Okay, we love that. Fantastic. I think it's really interesting, this idea that there's actual Medicaid fraud. I mean, there is Medicaid fraud. It's just by providers and stuff like that. It's not. It's not by. I don't. I think there are probably a few people on Medicaid that make too much money and just lie about their income. That probably happens, but they're not. It's not like they're going and getting 7 knee replacements. Just they don't get cash payments, right? You don't get. So I mean that's not really defrauding the system, right? So the bill doesn't go after folks that are it's provider scams and doctor scams, the billing and things like that. That's where the fraud comes in. It's not. I don't think there's I heard a term yesterday on a podcast. Somebody saying Medicaid. Reagan used to talk about the welfare queens, and they were talking about these Medicaid kings who are scamming the system. I think that's just not something that really exists as a problem. It's a problem. It's just a phantom problem. But I'm sure lots of people have. I don't particularly love the bill. I think it's very interesting. Neither does the populist wing of the Republican Party. The Steve Bannons, the Marjorie, what's her face, Taylor Greene. These people, the populists who helped bring Trump into office. Bannon is like, look, our base is on Medicaid. And what's interesting, I think, as you get a realignment here of, rich people are becoming Democrats. The biggest thing is splitting the parties now is education. A lot more affluent folks are becoming Democrats, but they still want, these folks who are wealthy and becoming Democrats have, I think, some sort of nostalgia for government doing things like providing health care. And then you have becoming Republican, right? I mean, that realignment. And those people want their health care. So, interesting realignments.
Yeah, how can anybody justify our deficit, which is the amount of money we spend over and above the amount of money we take in, going up above $3.5 trillion? It just that makes no sense to your fiscally conservative Republicans. It makes no sense to me whatsoever.
I'm gonna quote Uncle Steve to Uncle Steve.
Yeah.
What's a politician's number one job?
To get elected.
What's their second job?
To get elected. And I have said that in certain rooms, and people call bullshit on me. They say it's
absolutely not true. Absolutely true.
And I don't argue the point. I just let it sit. But it always has been true. It always will be true.
And see, there are no votes in deficit reduction. Not a lot, anyway. I mean, that's not something people vote on. You get votes giving people programs, or giving people tax cuts, or giving people. You don't get votes by saying, guess what, you're not going to get what you want, but I'm going to lower the national debt. That gets you no vote.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, and nobody's talking about it except me, in that Trump lied over and over and over again when he campaigned on he was going to eliminate taxes for those on Social Security. And as I said at the open, it was as recent as Thursday, a day and a half ago, where he said 3 times that people on Social Security, 90%, were not going to have to pay taxes. And it's a total lie. It's total bullshit. But anyways, we'll move on. Violet, good morning. It's a pleasure to see you, and thank you for doing the heavy lifting.
Hey there, Steve.
Hey there, Violet.
How'd your 4th of July go?
My 4th of July went very well. I stayed close to my dog. We watched the fireworks from the backyard, and regardless of all the restrictions and all of the threats from the mayor of everybody. People, I think they colloquially called Los Angeles the illegal fireworks capital of the country. I don't know. They were going on all over the place.
Okay, well, my neighborhood in this area is maybe second because we had our own
Right,
personal
yeah.
fireworks show. We didn't have to go anywhere. It was wonderful, and I got to go swimming and hang out. It was a great 4th of July, so glad to be here this morning and looking forward to the show.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Let's say hello to Dr. James. Dr. James, good morning. Thank you for doing the heavy lifting.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, so just kind of listening to this, I have a couple of comments already. So one thing, this trope that you use, Steve, about the person on the couch, eating their food stamp money away, that's and you're aware of this, that's an old kind of quasi-racist trope that came out.
Sitting on the couch eating potato chips.
Well, they used to eat bonbons, right? It's like they used to
Okay,
talk about
okay.
the welfare queen.
Okay.
And that's what you're referring to. And
Yeah.
I would recommend or suggest or maybe just highlight the fact that you're skating thin ice when it comes to kind of a level of insensitivity that I think has been addressed countless times, that is just not really the case, because even with some
Really?
well, let's look at it like this.
Sure. Look at it any way you want. Go ahead.
Thanks. So if you've got someone, let's say I've got a few kids and I'm collecting $300 per dependent, right? Every new dependent over 0 is someone that I'm caring for. So that in and of itself is work. Okay, that's not nothing, right? I mean, you're not just sitting on the couch eating bonbons. I mean, that's like saying, every stay-at-home mother is, lazy and does nothing and waits for, their partner's check, their husband's check, whatever, to come home and bring home the baby.
Well, if their husband is working, they're bringing in an income.
Well, but what I'm saying is, if you look at the person themselves, there is no qualitative difference between someone who is taking care of their kids, and receiving money from the state, or taking care of their kids and receiving money from their partner, when you look at the individual in question who's taking care of someone. So let me just put it this way. You can say whatever you want. I didn't like that comment. I thought it was highly insensitive and actually not. I think that's a better way of putting it. Just to respect,
No, and I'm glad you said that, and I will put it a different way right now. If you are able to work, you should be working. Okay?
So you don't believe in
Hold on, let me
stay-at-home
finish.
mothers.
Let me finish.
Yeah.
If you are able to work and you're not working, then you know what? Maybe you should be off of assistance. Maybe you shouldn't be getting food stamps. Maybe you shouldn't be getting welfare.
I don't know if I'm in the matrix right now. Can you just confirm whether you've?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. So I have a few comments.
Sure.
So yeah. So it sounds to me like you don't believe that, essentially, here's what I'm hearing you say. If you're a party of one and you're able-bodied, then I want you out there working to earn your benefits, right?
Yes.
And there are limits. Okay, I hear that. And I don't know, maybe I could be moved in a direction of being compelled by that argument if we dug into that one a bit deeper and kind of worked it out in terms of the minutia, because on its face, I'm not seeing a whole lot wrong with that, as when you use the qualifier, if you're able. But I mean, as soon as you throw a kid into the mix, I really think that becomes a very, very fuzzy surface area.
Well, let me ask you this. If you have a whole bunch of kids and you can't find child care, or the father of your child is not putting in their support, what stops you from staying home and retraining yourself, getting vocational rehabilitation, learning a new trade? What stops you from doing that?
Well, luckily in 2025, with the advent of online universities and whatnot, things like that are becoming easier in terms of access.
My point exactly.
Okay, well, look, I'm not an all or nothing kind of guy. I mean, I'm trying to, I'm actually trying to,
No, I can tell you are trying to be conciliatory, and the first point you made was totally valid, which is why I said, you know what, you're right. That was a demeaning comment, and I'll say it a different way. You're right there.
Okay, so I'm again, I think it would be, and maybe now is not the time, and this is something that I in my own time will probably dig into a bit because I want to understand this better, but essentially, those are things that, yes, they have merit. The issue here is that what the requirement is, it's 20 hours a week, right? That's 80 hours a month. And the issue with that as a minimum is, if, depending on how many dependents you have, that becomes increasingly challenging to carve out. Even when you're going to school, I mean, if you're going to school full time, then you say you're going to school full time, and I think you count your study hours into that equation, hopefully. But I mean, even when you're going to school full time, I mean, a class in and of itself is typically like 1 to 3 hours long. And so if you're taking, 4 to 5 classes, plus if you can calculate in some study time, I mean, I'm just saying, it can be, if you're talking about raising kids and going to school, this becomes also its own sort of challenge in terms of thriving. Though I get what you're saying. I mean, you can find ways to meet that employment
Make it
quota.
work. You find ways to make it work.
Right, and so yeah, I mean, I think there might be some potential good that could come out of organizations that help people who need to meet their quota serve a particular function in society, even if it's volunteer hours, because those do count as well.
That's
and
right.
Maybe some nonprofit organizations will be born from a potential new pool of people who are increasingly motivated to get out there and kind of quote unquote lend a hand. So I mean, I hear that part of it as a potential, it hasn't happened today, but maybe people are imagining that's what might happen in the best possible of all worlds. So anyway, so that's kind of my comment about that. The only other thing I wanted to say for the minute was a comment about who are these people sort of quote unquote cheating Medicare and Medicaid. And I did a talk about this earlier in the week in reference to this case in Texas that
Well, the
came
comment,
out.
if you were listening, the comment that was made earlier by Scott is he didn't think people were really cheating Medicaid. That's what he said. Yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, so just this week, I mean, this is pretty insane. Just this week, the Department of Justice had a whole press announcement about this huge amount of fraud that they found in the Medicaid system. There were.
And just to clarify, not Medicare, but Medicaid, correct?
Hold on, let me. No, that's fair. I want to give you.
And I'll tell you why.
What?
Because most of these types of press releases on fraud are Medicare, not Medicaid. But I don't know what you're referring to.
Okay, hold on.
Sure.
I mean, if you're asking exactly, okay, so. Okay, so Justice Department's nationwide dragnet spanning 50 federal districts, 12 state attorneys general, 324 defendants, including 96 licensed clinicians, has surfaced an ocean of schemes from bogus telemedicine consults to prescription opioid mills. Federal teams froze more than $245 million in cash, crypto, Bentleys, beach houses. CMS algorithms running hot stopped over $4 billion in payments before.
CMS is Medicare.
Yeah, I know, I understand. So, so basically, this is called Operation Gold Rush. They claim that they found more than $10 billion in fraudulent claims. I'm looking for the specific. I know CMS is Medicare, so it's probably Medicare related, but
yes.
And there are fraudsters all over. My point was that I really wanted to focus on was that a lot of the fraud happened, offshore internationally, and there were whole sort of rings of people who were local here who facilitated fraud by groups outside of the U.S. that were then committing the fraud, creating fake accounts, and this is pretty. I mean, from what I understand, they were saying this is happening with state benefits as well. I just don't think Operation gold rush was their focus, but this is not something that only Medicare is a target of. Something that there's unemployment's been a target of too in California, as well as I believe, though I can't pay my receipts on that, so I'll keep that comment off the table for now.
All right. I totally appreciate that. Thank you very much for your contributions. Let's say hello to Alfonso. Alfonso, good morning. Thank you for doing the heavy lifting. Alfonso might be busy. IRL. We can. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Nice being here.
Hi, it's good to have you here.
Yeah. I really appreciate the pushback and the sensibility that Dr. James brings, because
And I acknowledge that. It was a rude, demeaning comment, and I immediately acknowledged that and rephrased it.
yeah, as a Hispanic, as a Bolivian, I don't see that. It's culturally very American to it's many things that happened in the U.S. that created a culture of consent, of diversity, awareness of racial discrimination and toxic masculinity and what have you.
Laziness and taking advantage of the system. Yes, please continue.
And I'm an 80s kid. I was born in the 70s, but I grew up in the 80s. And I really enjoyed the crass humor that we used to see in movies where you had, you were breaking all the rules. These things didn't age well. But I think it is a new paradigm, and we are catering for people's sensibility. So it's important to be aware of these things. And I want to say, in the privacy of my home, I like to watch these films where they make fun of my people, your people, their people, the males, the females, the gays, everyone. I think it's good to be able to appreciate these cultural changes in good humor. So it's good to have all perspectives. So I really appreciate this.
Thank you, Alfonso. Let's say hello to Cora. Cora, good morning. It's a pleasure to see you back on the show. Thank you for doing the heavy lifting.
Hey, good morning.
Hi.
I'm back from the beach.
You went there early, or did you go there for a couple of days?
Last weekend. I
Yep.
was there
No,
around
I know I heard you say you're off to the beach, but I didn't know if it was, the entire weekend or whatever.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, it was the entire weekend. So.
Yep.
Yep, and yeah, I'll just kind of chip into the last conversation. When I was in college, I worked for a student-run nonprofit. And what we did is we worked with non-traditional students, basically, like people that had started college later, had kids, lived off campus for other reasons,
Like
things
Dr.
like that.
James.
Yeah, exactly. And it was right in Clinton's Work First initiative, right?
Who, by the way, was the last president to achieve a balanced budget. Bill Clinton. Go ahead.
But what I wanted to point out is that there are things that people miss about the utilization of welfare. So, first of all, most people that go on welfare are on it for, I'm sure the average has changed, but I used to know this back then, an average of 7 months total in a lifetime, and they never go back on it again. So it's really a stopgap measure, and I'm talking about not food stamps, but TANF, right, the temporary aid for needy families, and so they're not on it for very long. Some people are on it for longer, some people are on it for shorter, and that's why it's an average. And some people are on it for a lifetime, but it's actually nowhere near being the majority of people that are on welfare. It's like a very, very, very small percentage that are on it for a very long time. The other thing is that during the Work First initiative, one of the things that we ran into is the single moms, or, you know, even shared parenting moms, but moms that were starting college to get an education. This was like the education school for the state, so a lot of teachers, people that were going into healthcare, social workers, things like that. The 20 hours a week that they had in there, the required work, actually really messed up their ability to stay at school. And I spent most of my time working at that nonprofit filing appeals.
Thank you for digging into this, by the way, because I really am listening into.
Yeah, filing appeals for the Work First, because these women would lose their child care that was provided through in tandem with TANF while they were in school. They would lose their child care because they weren't working, right? But they were going to school to get much better jobs that would get them off welfare in the long run. So it really was a ridiculous situation. And yeah, I spent most of my time working at that nonprofit helping these women file appeals to get their child care back. It was just wild. So a lot of it is a lot more counterproductive than you think. They're, you know, the people that they say they're targeting are by far the minority of people that actually use TANF. And the people that actually see the worst of it, you know, and have the most problems are the people that are actually trying to get off welfare and stay off welfare for the rest of their lives. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
And I appreciate that. Thank you. Let's go to Benjamin. Benjamin, good morning. Welcome to the show. What would you like to talk about?
Good morning, Steve. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Doing great.
Did you see some official paid fireworks?
Yeah, I did. We've got a local
My
park.
favorite post last night was from Brian Macbeth, who stayed in his room. He said he wasn't going to watch fireworks this week because the United States had cut off Patriot missiles to Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
So, shout out to some people with principles.
Hey, Benjamin, good morning. Did you gain your religion?
I am gaining my religion. I love it. Good to see you, Dr. James. How are you? I hope you're doing well as well.
Yeah, sir.
Steve, I put a link in the back channel. I love the mods. I think the mods are all.
I have the best mod squad in the history of Clubhouse, bar none.
They are very highly talented. If I was throwing a party and I went to the grocery store to get helium for the party, and the store was just out of helium, I would come to the mod squad for backup. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're always there for you when you need
Damn right.
hot air.
That's because I'm always there for them.
Exactly. So I wanted to point out that accidentally and without evidence, you were right this morning. And it's okay to be right accidentally. It's not the best. But here's an article. I put it in the chat. It's from NIH.gov. And it's a study, and it shows that, in fact, SNAP participants, when compared, and get this, people who are eligible for SNAP, but who are not taking it. The people who are taking SNAP are 2.6 times as likely to be obese. Now, this is not a fraud crisis. This is not a laziness crisis. This is not an unfairness crisis. If my good fellows who have spoken compassionately on this actually gave it for the lives of these people, they would be concerned about the health crisis, which is SNAP. SNAP is causing people to become incapacitated.
Correlation does not equal causation. Where's your link? Let us all be able to check your data. Blah, blah. You know.
I love Dr. James. See, Dr. James is the one person here who will hold my feet right properly to the
Well, he's getting better in his timing. Please continue, Benjamin.
and that is worth the price of admission. The link, of course, Dr. James is already in the chat.
You said you posted it. Yeah.
At least 7 minutes ago. If you just go up 7 minutes, I think you'll find it there. It's the NIH.gov link.
Thank you, Benjamin.
You know it's good because it's right, proper, scientific, peer-reviewed scientific publication, and who could ever doubt peer-reviewed scientific publication? Now, it turns out, there is a crisis of sitting on the couch eating potato chips, or to say it another way, there is a crisis that SNAP causes people to become homeless. That is completely, entirely, and categorically inappropriate. Government should shut down the SNAP program overnight, given that it has that propensity to cause people to become
Well, I completely disagree with that, as I alluded to earlier, but I'll say it more specifically now. I have no problem whatsoever with welfare and food stamps. In fact, I endorse welfare and food stamps for those that are down on their luck, but not on a permanent basis. When you qualify for welfare and food stamps, you should also be required to either A, look for a job, or if your job market is closed down, get into a retraining and or volunteer and or educational program while you are on your welfare and food stamps, and so you can retrain yourself to re-enter the job market. And by the way, Cora earlier mentioned an average of 7 months. I'm completely willing to extend that to a year, if not a year and a half, maybe even 2 years, depending on your specific circumstance. I would cap it at 2 years, but go ahead, Benjamin.
Yeah,
Actually,
just
Steve,
around
if
this.
I had a comment.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to back this up, but I wonder if the obesity related to SNAP is because the cheapest foods are high fructose corn syrup, heavily processed, monocarbohydrate, and if you want to try to have it organic,
I'm sure that's a contributing factor, yes.
And it's only $300 a month, by the way. I mean, what can you buy with $300?
And as a recipient of SNAP in certain times of our lives, I mean, if we wanted to get fresh produce and, healthier foods, it was 2 days worth of food versus a week and a half with, again, highly processed,
Yep.
fructose corn syrup, all that kind of stuff.
Definitely a
So,
contributing factor, no question about it.
well, that's what I'll land at.
Valid comment, Violet. Absolutely valid. Benjamin, go ahead. Yeah, I know you get 2.5 minutes to reclaim
I'll
your
just
time.
start over with the 5 minutes.
Steve, when he's done, I just have a quick fact check, but I want to wait for Benjamin to run out of his.
And by the way, we have not forgotten about Monsef and Dr. Mitch, maybe in a reverse order. I don't know, but I want to get them in before the top of the hour break. But that's fine.
I'll be very quick with
Dr. James. Dr. James is the only one who got that aside. There's another aspect to this. In addition to this being horrendously poor for people's health, and I appreciate Violet's concern about corn syrup subsidies, which I do think are corrosive and a violent attack on America's health. This study would suggest the opposite. I mean, these people were ostensibly had more money to spend on food than people who were equally eligible but not on the program. And so they certainly could have spent that extra money on better food, but they made poor choices, perhaps. I don't know. Anyway, I wanted to move beyond just the fear of obesity. There is
Well, you got 60 seconds to talk about whatever you want. Go ahead.
there is a feeling of worth and dignity that comes from contributing to society in a way that allows society to support your lifestyle. And people who are not able to do that or don't have the opportunities to do that or not encouraged to do that or required in some cases, as Cora quite rightly mentioned, that people who go on welfare who work often are punished for doing so. That's a very, very negative feedback cycle. So people should be encouraged to do something worthwhile so that they feel worthwhile. And that hasn't been discussed by any of your experts. Who,
Well, I discussed it.
definitely,
I briefly discussed it.
definitely holding up the show with their hot air and nothing else. Okay, so
Well, I'll tell you what, Benjamin, why don't we stop there? Why don't you take a couple of notes? We'll come. I have
60
Benjamin.
seconds. Just 60 seconds.
Okay, go
Because I was
ahead.
interrupted. I want to reclaim my time.
Go ahead.
60 seconds. So the new rule, you might not be that thing that you say you are if you can't define it. So if you are something, you have to be able to define that thing. Want to be paying attention to the people in your life who claim to be something and they don't even know the definition of it. And I'll give you an example. This is a challenge. Good friend of the show is a scientist, or claims to be. But every time I've asked him to define science, I have been disappointed because it seems like we can't find that beautiful, bright blue line that differentiates science from other enterprises. So if you think you're a thing like an atheist, that you can't define what it means to be an atheist, then you might not be an atheist. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying. Fortunately, I can define atheism. It means I don't believe in God. Thank you very much. And before we go to Dr. Mitch and Monsef, Dr. James.
Dr. James wants to fact check.
Okay, Dr. James, 30 seconds. Alfonso, 30 seconds. Then I want to give a fresh 5 to Dr. Mitch and Monsef. Go ahead.
It's gonna take me about a minute, but here we go. Okay, just bear with me. So basically, this study that you're quoting, it's a Los Angeles snapshot. You're citing people use SNAP were more likely to be obese, but the study itself cautions that it can't tell whether SNAP caused that difference. So correlation does not equal causation. New research suggests that over time or uses quasi experiments finds the picture is far more mixed. In several subgroups, SNAP or larger benefits lower obesity risk. The weight gap appears to stem less from the program itself and more from the cost and availability of healthy foods, the once-a-month benefit cycle, and the chronic stress of poverty. Randomized pilots show that when SNAP dollars are nudged towards fruits and vegetables or away from sugar-sweetened beverages, diet quality improves without sacrificing food security. In short, the evidence argues for modernizing SNAP nutritional standards and benefit timing, not for cutting or stigmatizing the program. So if you give payments out twice a month rather than once a month, then you can help put a little bit of the dent in that binge eating cycle where, you have a bunch of food at the beginning of the month and then you run out slowly and have to start, making ends meet, stretching your dollars. There's a bunch of high quality studies I could cite that came after the one that Benjamin cited, which I won't because I won't have time. And finally, what we have here is essentially diet quality, not calories, is the actionable issue. SNAP dollars are often spent on calorie-dense, nutrient-poor items. Incentives and modest restrictions consistently improve purchasing patterns. Monthly sum. Okay, so basically right now we have testing in New England, Indiana, in several states in 2025.
You want to go over that in a fresh 5 in hour number 2?
I'm just noting it. I'm not going to do it.
I really, really want to get Dr. Mitch and Monsef in hour number 1. I really do.
I'm on my last breath here. So basically, you've got a bunch of states targeting the food environment rather than blaming recipients, and essentially looking at that is the thing that has been most beneficial. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Alfonso. 30 seconds.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
And/or a fresh 5 in hour number 2.
No, time limits are amazing because they help me focus. Just 2 quick comments. One is, you perhaps can't get a monolithic definition of science because there's a wide range of different ways of looking at it. I would consider everything to a degree of science. So, some things are more precise, some things are gathering data and There's softer and harder sciences, so that on the definition of science, you can't find, depending on who you ask, straight answers sometimes. But we do have the scientific method and all that. I'll leave it there. Thanks for my 30 seconds.
Absolutely. Thank you. Dr. Mitch, thank you very much for being patient. Welcome to the show. You have a fresh vibe. What would you like to talk about?
Steve, great conversation. I think a lot of times we're missing the forest for the trees, right? I don't think America's a poor nation. I don't think we should be replacing poor people's benefits with a missile shield. I think it's really kind of cruel. When it comes to healthcare, the problem has always been cost. It's a tremendous legal system. We've been talking about tort reform for years. The two things I was most excited about when RFK came in was having some kind of a transparent fee schedule for the payment of procedures and also to remove the liability shield for pharmaceutical companies. Those two things really excited me because they have the ability to help actual people. I live in California, and the problem with having a work requirement.
I'm sorry, pardon me, really quickly, that liability shield was only for COVID, I think, or am I mistaken?
Well, it's not only for COVID. It's
okay,
for.
I was mistaken. I'm sorry. Please continue.
Yeah, it's for any medicine that has emergency use authorization, and all vaccines. So anytime you say a medicine is a vaccine, what happens is you and I end up paying if someone's injured instead of the pharmaceutical company. And so I was pretty excited about that. It hasn't happened. A lot of things that kind of Trump campaigned on hasn't happened. I mean, we have all these rare earth minerals, we've got tremendous resources, and, the American people are not getting any kind of a dividend. We're paying the government to function when the government, is it going to matter to the national debt if somebody works 20 hours a week? Is that going to have any type of an impact? No, it's just not. The spending's out of control. Like you said, the interest rate, the amount of national debt we have is kind of insane. And it needs to be restructured more like a business. The government makes money, and we have tremendous resources here. And I don't think we should be punishing the most vulnerable people at a time right now in history where they're struggling the most. In California, if you have a minimum wage job, you get kicked off benefits. You exceed the threshold for any type of benefits just by having literally a minimum wage job. So people are not encouraged to work. There's a lot of things that can be done, but I think the big picture is to do things that help reduce the cost of government. I'm with Rand Paul on this, and his father, Ron Paul. I kind of, I think it's more or less out of control, the amount of spending and money printing, and a lot of it's going to the wrong place. And I don't think cutting people's basic benefits is the way to get, is the way to reduce government. It's kind of.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your contributions. Please stick around, and if you want a fresh five in hour number 2, we'll put you in the queue. Okay, let's see. Before Cogito and El Normo, you guys will be first up in hour number 2. Let's say hello to Monsef. Monsef, pleasure to have you on the stage. By the way, before you talk about whatever you want, how much of my intro did you hear? Some of it, all of it, none of it?
I did, most of it.
Fantastic. Please, thank you for being on the show. Always a pleasure. Go for it.
Yeah, you too, Steve. Two things, and I'm going to be done before the 11 o'clock hour in my time.
Okay.
So, two things. When we talk about the cutting fraud and all that, I don't know why the focus is on the single user that's getting, $300 a month in food stamps, and maybe $1,000, $1,500 in Medicaid, while, whatever government program they allows them to get, cheap healthcare, whatever. While the biggest abusers are corporate medical companies that abuse the system. I encourage everyone to go up and look up the history of from Florida, Rick Scott. Um, he was the CEO of a hospital here, and then it became a huge health organization. It got fined $1.7 billion. It was found that in all 14 counts of fraud cases, it was found liable, and it ranged from.
I'm assuming that was Medicare and not Medicaid, or am I
It
mistaken?
was all. It was all.
It was all Medicare. Thank you. Please continue.
No, no. All. It was Medicare abuse, Medicaid,
Okay.
a lot of other medical. So that doesn't even compare to. I mean, you're gonna need millions and millions of people abusing the government for $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month. Just like Cora said, that's not really something that they're gonna get for the rest of their lives, and that's what the focus on. I haven't heard any promises that we're going to cut down on, abuse and fraud from, these big companies that are defrauding the system. This is where the money is going out the most. Number two, I did put a picture in my PTR, and I sent you two graphs, Uncle Steve, in your back channel, that shows this, the impact of this big, beautiful bill. The top line is the revenues. It's the tax cuts are expected to cost us, the tax cuts to the rich, the 2017 tax cut that are going to be expanded now, close to $5 trillion. And this is tax cuts to not the middle class, not the struggling masses. It's tax cuts to people that don't need tax cuts. Basically, when you have an equation like that, you would hope that the programs that you say that you're going to eliminate to fund these tax cuts are going to be at least the same. That that you need something to pay for all those tax cuts. No, when you look at the freaking graph, even when you add the savings that you get from cutting all the Medicaid and all that, it's a fraction of that $5 trillion. So the focus on, cutting, government programs to people that need it the most doesn't even come close to the amount of money that we're giving away to people that don't need it, and there's no one talking about that. So I'm getting close to the top of the hour. That's all I have, Uncle Steve. Just 2 points I wanted to highlight. And Rick Scott, by the way, as instead of going to jail, he was elected senator after paying $1.7 billion. So that's what's going to make a difference in the in the budget, not the going after people that need money to take care of their sick child. We're going to cut off that lifeline to them. Thanks.
Absolutely, thank you. All good points. Next in the queue would be El Normo and Coquito, but we've got the top of the hour breaks coming out. El Normo will be first. Coquito will be second. 1 hour in the tank and 2 hours left. Thank you all very much for joining another edition of Ask Uncle Steve with the Mod Squad. I've assembled the best Mod Squad in the history of Clubhouse. They have a variety of fields of expertise as well as knowledge. This is the way the show works. If you've been here, if you're here for the very first time, unlike other Clubhouse rooms, we put a premium on the new speakers. We want to hear the new speakers. But if you are an experienced speaker or a new speaker, come on up, get a fresh five. You can go on a narrative. You can say, Uncle Steve or Steve, just go on mute. I want to speak for 5 minutes. No problem. Just don't say something completely idiotic or stupid. In other words, have a take and don't suck. On the other hand, if you want to engage with me or my Mod Squad, just say you want to talk to me or you want to talk to any member of the Mod Squad. They are more than willing to engage with you. Don't go back, don't go away, and we'll be right back with hour number 2.
King
significant for them. Like, this is a value that I hold, right? And so then when you ask them, well, where do you get that from? They'll say, well, I read that in this sociological treatise or whatever, or they read this in this, you know, in the art of motorcycle maintenance or whatever, not knowing that that person potentially got it from a person who got it from a person who got it from the Bible. Do you see what I'm saying? So we don't always know. We don't always know the origin of these ideas. So I'm not saying that there's like a school of people that are out there, you know, consciously promoting social Darwinism. I'm just saying that understanding social Darwinism helps me to organize what I see happening. This whole idea of, you know, the competition of the free market, right? The best is gonna win out. It's that kind of idea, I guess. So no, I'm not saying that this is like a sect or something that's operating in the world. I think since the industrial age and the robber baron era, this has been a social, a sort of conscious for some people, unconscious for others, a social ideology that has functioned for us. And a lot of these people do believe in God. They're creationists, and they, you know, I mean, I can go off on a whole thing. They believe in the concept of the Calvinist elect, that there are certain people who have been endowed with the right, to govern, lead, be in power over other people. I mean, that's the what is it? That's part of why in the Declaration of Independence it says all humans have been endowed by their Creator. To contravene that idea that there are only certain people who God has given the providence, like, to rule over other people and stuff. Like, it's connected to religion as well. It's one of the really interesting intersections between a religion and science. But I won't go off on a whole thing on that. But hopefully that basically answers the question.
That was good. Thank you. I appreciate that. Happy Saturday, everyone. Please continue the conversation.
Well,
Jasmine.
if I can ask Dr. AG, but isn't part of the Heritage Project, like, their ancestral right is due to the fact of not just their skin color, but their financial gain? It's directly, like, to their pocketbook. So they believe that, I believe I read that somewhere, that the Heritage Project, you know, the creators of, you know, Project 2025, which is leaving this country by leaps and goddamn bounds, their ancestral right is because of the fact that they are so rich. To go back to the old moniker of having a king at this point.
Wow.
Well, I don't know if I'm understanding what you're asking me. So I'm gonna restate it the way I think you're asking it, what I think you're asking, and then you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. So the people in the Heritage Foundation, like the people in the family, that group, the family, they believe that they actually say in their conversations that they have been chosen, like, by God as leaders. And because of this sort of chosenness, that